Hello everyone, welcome to our next step in our travels through the book of Genesis. Previously we heard the Lord's covenant given to Abram where he was promised land, seed, and blessing, but that started with a command for him to go. In this paragraph we see his response to that command. It begins with Vayelek Avram, Ka'asher deber elaiv Adonai. So Abram went, Vayelek, same root verb that we had with the command. Command was lek, from halak to go. This is Vayelek, the preterite. Go, Abraham went. Ka'asher deber. So deber, nothing at the end, no prefix. First radical has a hierarch and it has joined to the second radical that has a dagesh forte. So this is a PL perfect. It's a perfect verb and a background clause of narrative. What should be the tense in English? Yeah, we're past time and we're perfective. So just as the Lord had said to him, Vayelek ito Lot, and Lot went with him. Then we have Avram ben chamesh shanim v'shivim shana b'tzeito mecharan. So this doesn't begin with a preterite, and maybe you're wondering, well, why did you move it all the way out to the margin? Maybe you just wanted to save space because it's a really, really long line, which actually has a tiny bit of merit to it in this case. But I'm looking at those first three lines as kind of a preview of the whole scene. When we start reading these lines, Abram has not left yet. We're going to hear about him going and even have it be stated to us again about Lot. So it's like this is a preview, and this begins to fill out the paragraph, or maybe begins a new paragraph. Our non-preterites can either be parenthetical remarks, background clauses, or sometimes they start paragraphs. So Abram was the son of 5 years and 70 year. Might remember that when our numbers are larger than 10, the noun that goes with them is in the singular form rather than in the plural. And so Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. We're getting setting information here. Vayikach Avram et Sarai ishto, and then we have ve'et, and ve'et. So all of these lines, of course, are one clause, but I've put them on separate lines, treating all the direct objects like a list. What about vayikach? What's going on with that verb? Anything at the end? Yeah, no, there's no ending. What's at the beginning? We see vav patak dagesh, which is an indicator of the preterite. The dagesh goes in the prefix, which here is a yod. So we're left with only two root letters. We've got kof followed by chet. Whenever we see a kof followed by chet in the Hebrew Bible, we should assume that it's lakach, right? There might be 3-4 cases of a kof followed by a chet in the Bible that are not lakach, but it's so overwhelming. Just assume lakach when you see those two letters. And what happened to the lamed then? Okay, so this is a kal preterite. The lamed, R1, was over top a silent shavah. The lamed was closing a syllable. And lakach is a verb that thinks it's a first noon verb. So normally if we had noon over the shavah closing the syllable, it would try and become a dagesh forte in the next letter. And that's what lakach does here. It actually has become the dagesh forte in the kof. But it's lakach, took. Abram took Sarai his wife, ve'et Lot ben Achiv, and Lot the son of his brother, which we would say his nephew, ve'et kol rachusham asher rakashu, and all of their stuff, their property, which they had, and English is going to, like different words, even though these are based on the same root, all that they had required. When we look at this verb, we see u at the end, and no prefix out here. R1 has kamate, so kal, perfect, third common plural from rakash. If we were looking at the paradigm, the katal paradigm, we would usually see ka talu with a shavah under the tet. Why do we not have a shavah here? Well, it's because it's a pausal form. We have a nice zakef here. It's the last word in the phrase, and as it gets extra emphasis, and when we have that extra stress, we get a full vowel there rather than a vocal shavah. And again, it's a perfect verb in a background clause, so we're going to translate which they had acquired. Then ve'et hanefesh asher asu b'charan, or excuse me, v'charan. Now this is a little bit trickier, and we'll talk about this later, but we have and the nefesh, the soul, the breath, the life, which ve'asu, which is from asa, which they had made in Haran. So again, like I say, we'll talk about that in a bit. And then we have another preterite, Vayetza'u lalechet artsa Canaan. They went out to go to the land of Canaan, or they set out to go to the land of Canaan. Then Vayavo'u artsa Canaan. So again, to the land, i.e. Canaan. How about our verb back here, Vayavo'u? At the end, we have u. At the beginning, we have vav patak dagesh, so preterite. The dagesh goes in the prefix, which is yod. So yod at the front and u at the end, third masculine plural. What is the ID badge? Well, it's been messed with, right? This is not the normal ID badge for this stem. What happened here? What's the root? Okay, the root is bo, bet, vav, aleph, and second vav, second yod, drop out. And that means that the first radical, here it's the bet, has to go lead the syllable, so that pulls it away from the prefix, because the cal prefix forms want to have the first radical join the prefix and make a pretonic closed short syllable. Can't do that here because R2 is gone, R1 moves over. The prefix now has pretonic open long kamates. And why kamates? Well, it's lengthening a patak. Well, that's not in our ID badge for the cal, right? Well, the thing is, before the cal was yiktol, it was yaktul, at least for the dynamic or fientive roots. And so there's a stage when that short changes to a short I, and that's the form we see in the paradigm, but this opened up and lengthened when it was still an so that's why we have kamates, even though we have a cal. So they entered, or they arrived at the land, i.e. Canaan, and then Vaya'avor Avram Ba'aretz. When we look at Vaya'avor, we see nothing at the end. At the beginning, we've got the Vav B'tak Dagesh again. The Dagesh is going in a Yod. So Yod at the front, nothing at the end, 3 MS. And again, we have an A-class vowel with the prefix. So is this cal or is this hifil? Why would it be confusing, and how can we know? Well, it could be confusing because the first radical, this ayin, is a guttural, and so that's gonna require an A-class vowel to pronounce it, or at least it's going to prefer to be preceded by an A-class vowel, and that's what we have here. That would happen in both the cal and the hifil. So we're going to actually look at the theme vowel in order to determine this time. And we've got the U-class theme vowel that characterizes the cal. We don't get an U-class theme vowel for any of the other stems. So he went out to go to the land. He arrived at the land. He passed through. Well, this is they, this is they, this one is he. Abram passed through the land, ad machom Shechem ad Elon Moreh, unto the place or the site of Shechem, as far as the oak of Moreh. And then we have a parenthetical phrase, V'hakananani az ba'aretz. So the Canaanite then, or was then, in the land. And this break from the preterite structure is closing off our paragraph, just as this non-preterite began our paragraph back here. Or quasi-began, depending on your view of these introductory sentences that describe everything that's coming in this section. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward, not quite as packed as the previous paragraph that we had. God told Abraham to go, and he went. He obeyed. He demonstrated loyalty. And that's really important for the unfolding of the story, because if he doesn't go, then he doesn't get to the land. He's not going to be given the land, etc., etc., etc. I want to take a look at this line here, because it's a little bit odd. Let's take a look. Here I have it pulled up in accordance, Hebrew here and New American Standard on the side here, and it has translated it as, and the persons which they had acquired in Haran. And so what I decided to do actually was to look for the verb asa and the noun nephesh. And so this is not a really fancy search. It's just find these words close to each other. And then I started to look through them for this kind of syntax. One of the things that was bothering me is that a nephesh here is singular and the translation here is plural. It's been interpreted as a reference to the employees or servants that Abram has taking care of all of his property and flocks and whatnot. And while certainly he brought those people with him, that doesn't mean that this is a reference to those people. So it's singular rather than plural, which what I would expect for persons. So I wanted to look for this idea of making nephesh, right? Because even that sounds odd. Who can make a life? And I went through these, and there's pretty much very few similar constructions. This is the closest thing, Jeremiah 38:16. King Zedekiah is talking to Jeremiah. He's making an oath to him. Chai Adonai, as surely as the Lord lives. And he gives the Lord a title or a reference. Who made for us Hanefesh Hazot. Whatever that means. And you can see their interpretation here is reasonably good English, who made this life for us, almost like the English idiom that we have, this life, this situation in life. But there's really no other good parallels. So if here the construction means to make the life situation that we have, then perhaps that's what it means back here in Genesis 12. And the life which they had made in Haran. But that's kind of odd English. How do you take the life which you have? So we might modify the English a little bit further and say the livelihood, or something like that, something that implies all of the stuff that is related to being herders and their flocks and whatnot. And so Abraham gathers this stuff, and then they actually do go to Canaan. They arrive there and they enter it. They go partway through, and they go as far as Shechem in this paragraph. They will keep going in the next paragraph. So it's interesting, when we were back in the previous paragraph and God told him to go, leave your country, leave your family, leave your father's household. We might interpret that a little over much as a complete separation from everything that he's ever known. And there is certainly the idea of separation from what he is familiar with and the society that he is most influenced by. But it's not quite the same thing as leave everything he has ever known. He's taking his property, he's taking his livelihood, he's taking the things that he needs in order to sustain his family and all of his employees, and he's taking that with him. So he's not going to be in a situation that is 100% unfamiliar to him. But he is doing something that's very significant in terms of leaving that place in society and going somewhere new. So, okay, this paragraph maybe seems a little bit mundane, but in all of the mundane element of this, it is a fundamental act of loyalty and obedience to the Lord. We're seeing the unfolding of the covenant in practice. Stay tuned for the next paragraph.